Okay, welcome back. So, the previous classes you should check the video I give you from Khan Academy about vectors, the basic introduction of vectors and vector match. It's a little bit more in deep than what we already learned. So you remember last semester we already talked about vectors. It was week number 13. So you remember that in processing the vector we use, we have class type p vector. P vector can be two-dimensional, three-dimensional, or more dimensional if we need. Each vector should have the size. This is length of the vector, and normal. This is direction of the vector, right? So normal, it's always length 1. So length, it does not care about direction. It's just like how long this vector. After check video with Khan Academy, now you know that we can add, substitute, multiply, divide vector. You also remember, so if you want to do operation on some vector, you better copy it if you don't want the original vector to be changed. Right, so if I have vector 1 and I have vector 2, in vector 1 I can copy vector 2, and after I can write vector 2 like norm to find the normal, right? If I will do like this, vector 1 will change also. If I do this way, vector, or I mean vector mistake, so vector 1. If I do like this way, vector 2 will change also. If I do this way, vector 2 will still the same as it was before, just vector 1 will change to the length of 1. So this is, we just make a link, this is we copy vector. You remember we can use like dot operation, we talked about this in the class on previous week, to write in one line it, right? So you remember we talked about how we can add vectors, divide. I will attach this code again to the class so I can see. Okay, let's quickly go through the code. So after you know now basic of background of vectors in mathematics, how it's calculate, how it's doing, we quickly review how we're using it in processing. So with p vector we create array of vectors. Here, right, we have vector, another vector. So here one vector, here we create array of vectors. Here we use for loop to initialize the vector. So here we can see p vector random 2D. So it will p vector random 2D will give us vector with the length 1, so it's normal vector. So basically it's just direction. It will give us random direction. And I multiply this random direction on some random number from 2 to 100. So I multiply random direction by length. So now I have here vector I that have random direction and random size from 20 to 2000. And here we draw vectors. We have function draw vector, and it's simple. We draw a line from the center of our coordinate to the vector position, and we draw ellipse where is the vector. So to get access to the parameters of vectors, yeah. So now you know the vector, it is object. We talk about object last class, so you can get access it. If I start this program, I have multiple vectors here, so from the center, right? Okay, this is one program. we did another example last semester. So what does this example doing? This is, I just show you basically about copy function, yeah, why we need to copy it. I have vector add, subtract, and we tried different way. We tried mathematics function, how we can subtract one vector from another, how we can add one vector to another, and so on. And we have animation. That basically draw the multiple lines and the dot in the middle, it follow mouse, and when it gets closer to some the object on the screen, it's getting bigger. If it's more far away, getting smaller, right? So we have how many objects we have. We have p vector mouse, where we will save our mouse position. We have p vector circle, how much circles we're gonna have, and size for each of them. We have p vector color and target color, so if you want to change color. And we have 10 objects on the screen. So we initialize the vector again. Now we initialize p vector different way. We initialize p vector from the constructor. Last class we talked about object constructor, and you see this constructor need two parameters, x and y position, right? If it's two-dimensional vector. And we initialize the size for vector. Okay, we can put size in the third dimension like z, but maybe it's not good because when we will do some vector math, it will be affected also. And for object we do the same, we initialize random vector, and after we draw our objects, and we have this few simple function update mouse. So in the mouse set, so mouse set, I can change the vector with function set, and then give x and y position to this vector. So now I change mouse vector. I can do it this way also, but this is more clear and fast. Update p vector. So here we see we copy our mouse vector, because if I will use here mouse substitute position and divide by 40, it will change the mouse vector. I don't want it. I want my mouse vector still the same, because I need to do it calculation on other objects also, right? So update circle position. So I found the direction from my vector to mouse, I divide it by 40. So I make the, it's kind of tells that it's in 40 frames, in 40 steps, it will come to my mouse position if I'm not gonna move mouse. You can see if here I will create 10, it will move much faster, right? So temp substitute position, one vector minus another vector, it will give me the vector between these two vectors. So this is distance and direction between these two vectors. And I divide this distance to some numbers, to is the animation, and to my position vector I add this isInc vector, right? So draw a circle, the simple, same. Okay, so please review this code to remember how we use vectors in processing. So I will attach it to our class, and see you next class. That's gonna be test.